Good afternoon. Can I have some injury news, please?
Well, we've got a couple of players who will still need to test tomorrow morning, but it's not looking that bad. The one player that will miss the game will be Cheku Kuyate, because he twisted his ankle during the first half. Actually, he carried on for a while in the second half, but he won't recover in time to play tomorrow. But we're hoping it's not going to be that serious an injury, but it will keep him out of tomorrow's game. And of course Zaha isn't playing tomorrow because of his suspension, but otherwise we have a full squad to choose from.
And Tompkins?
Yeah, he should be okay. I mean, we'll give it he trained this morning, and we don't think there'll be any problems there, but our training session this morning was sufficiently light that we'd still like to check on it tomorrow morning.
I understand Mishi Batshuayi wasn't here today.
No.
According to your captain anyway. Mm-hmm. Is he fit enough to start in terms of match fitness if you decide to select him?
Yeah, I would think so. I'm going to see him this afternoon. I'm waiting. His plane is arriving soon. He's coming directly to the training ground, so I'll wait here to meet him and speak with him. But he's been fit enough to be able to play for Valencia, so there's no reason why he shouldn't be fit enough to play for us. But I need to speak to him to find out how he feels about his level of fitness, of course, and make a decision.
How did the move come about? Steve Harris described it as an opportunity that came up late. Was there not a chance to get him earlier in the window when he could possibly be playing for you and settle into the squad already?
No, unfortunately not. He was a player that we actually discussed, in our discussions with regard to signing a forward player even before the transfer window opened. So he's been a name that's been on our lips for a while, but our initial inquiries were that he was likely to be loaned out again, but not necessarily to an English club. And then fairly late on we realised that there was a possibility, and there were several clubs in for him, and it was only right at the last minute that Chelsea decided that if he was going to be loaned out, we would be the prime candidate, and we jumped at it straight away. And Doug Freeman and Steve Parish did extremely well to use that limited time to get the transfer over the line, because it's a player that we've long admired and the player that we think is a bit of a missing piece in our jigsaw puzzle.
Does a missing piece mean a player who could have a real pivotal difference between now until the end of the season, do you feel?
Yeah, we hope so. If you look at his goal scoring record in all the clubs he's played at, I suppose you could hit me with the spell in Valencia has not been as successful as past spells, but that can be put down, I guess, to many reasons. I'll know more when I speak to him, but if you look at his record from the time when he started Anderlecht, going through Standard Liège and Marseille and Chelsea, his record has been very, very good. He's a proven goal scorer. We've always liked what we've seen. I've done research when his name came up and was a possibility for us earlier in the transfer window. I spoke to 2 or 3 people I know and whose judgment I trust about him as a player, as a character, and all I got was very, very good references. So for us, we need a player who is going to be able to guarantee us some goals, which we haven't had for a period of time, and we hope now in signing Mishi that we've got that person.
You said after Southampton that you didn't think it was likely at that late stage to do business. Do you regard Batshuayi therefore as something a bit of an unexpected coup, if you like? Yeah,
you could use that. The word coup would suggest that we've done something with Chelsea that other clubs have not been able to do, and I don't think that's the case. I think it was a little bit of good fortune on our part that he came our way, and it wasn't sent elsewhere. So I suppose you could regard that as a coup, but certainly it's something that on Wednesday evening I didn't necessarily see happening, although there was a glimmer of hope, but that hope, of course, got stronger during the actual day itself, and it was some good reaction work from the chairman and Doug Freedman to really put themselves out to make certain that we got the deal through, and we were able to provide a little bit of last minute drama for the television into the bargain. So it was a good day all round, I guess.
Yeah, it was. I don't want to talk about Wilfried Zaha. You sympathise with him being sent off at Southampton. How would you feel if the FA decided to extend the ban, given that the precedent is there for the sarcastic clapping, as it were, that Jamie Vardy did? Do you think that's unfair? Isn't the normal statutory ban enough?
I hope we won't get an extension to the ban. Of course, we wouldn't be at all happy with that. I can only hope that the people who make those decisions will empathise to some extent with the player as well. I mean, of course, in the cold light of day after the event, everyone feels contrite, and everyone, i.e. the people who make the mistake in doing it and getting themselves sent off, in our case Wilf, they are very contrite about it and very regretful. But I mean, basically his record in those terms of getting sent off and upsetting referees has been pretty reasonable. I think he was sent off about 7 years ago or something like that. So it's not something which happens all the time. He's not a perennial bad boy, one. And two, I think that, I'd like to think that the referees and the people who look at these situations will take what actually happened into consideration. There's no doubt there was quite a severe form of provocation, and the fact is, albeit that we understand, you have to accept that provocation exists and that the players who provoke do not get punished, and if you react to it, you are going to be the one to suffer from it. But I hope that people will take those things into consideration, because it wasn't just the fouling that provoked his reaction, it was Ward-Prowse's provocative actions towards him that actually brought about the final confrontation, and of course then his even further anger when he found himself getting yellow carded. So I'm not trying to justify or say what he did was right. It's very clear that what he did was wrong. The referee made the right decision. The referee had no alternative. So this is not a plea on my behalf to suggest that the referee did anything wrong or that what he did was right. All I'm saying is I hope that if it's going to go to the possibility of a further ban, the people who make the decisions will take all of these things into consideration. That's what I'm asking.
Probably answer my next question within that answer. Can I assume therefore you don't think there's a problem with Will's temperament in terms of you mentioned provocation, but also the reaction as well?
Listen, I mean, the fact is we've seen him react to being fouled. There's no doubt about that, as do quite a few players. He's not the only one. But the fact is he wears his heart on his sleeve. He I suppose has got a stronger sense of justice and injustice than other people or than many other people. So there's no doubt that he has to learn from this episode. He has to learn to control his emotions, and I'm pretty certain that's what he intends to do. But it doesn't alter my previous statement in the hope that the people who are looking into it will show some sort of compassion and understanding for the situation which provoked the incident.
I was thinking back to your time in the last 20 years and Claudio Ranieri's. I can't think of a time when you've met each other or when you overlapped in England. Have you faced each other elsewhere in Europe at international level perhaps?
We've both worked abroad. Claudio Ranieri is one of the biggest rivals when I was during my spell at Inter. Ranieri's Fiorentina were a major rival. They had Gabriele Batistuta, we had Roberto Carlos. I remember 2 matches in the semi-final of the Italian Cup in particular where those two clashed. So I knew Claudio Ranieri from that moment, if you like, and met him on several occasions there, because I say apart from the league matches where we met, we also met in the cup. So I don't know how many matches it was, maybe Claudio will remember, but I would guess 4 or 5 at least. And then of course I've come across him many times apart from that, not least of all when working when I was with national teams and was often used by UEFA as a technical study advisor. I would come across Claudio quite often in those situations as well, when maybe he was managing another foreign team, or occasionally when we actually worked together. So we actually go back quite a long way, and without ever becoming close friends, of course, you don't necessarily do that. I would say we are close acquaintances.
Did that intense rivalry allow for a good relationship then?
Yes. So I mean, he was one of the people I thought who were very helpful to me when I left Switzerland and went to Inter and found myself for the first time in Serie A. Of the other coaches that I came across, and there isn't an awful lot of contact in Italy between the coaches. It's not like here where the coaches quite often meet together after the games. It wasn't like that in Italy, but he was one of the ones I thought who went out of his way to extend a welcoming hand, and I've always appreciated that.
Why do you think he's done so well here? I mean, it's a long while ago. He did well at Chelsea, he did outstandingly at Leicester. And it looks, judging by the other night, that he can maybe be turning the corner rather than Fulham.
Yeah, I would think the answer that's quite simply that he's a good manager who's got a very good knowledge of football and knows what it takes to manage a football team and bring out the best in them. So I think his CV proves that without any shadow of doubt.
How important is this game in the context of the lower end of the table? Ranieri said he felt that Fulham had to be right, and they did so convincingly in the end. That puts a little bit of pressure on the teams immediately above them.
I think we're going to see lots of games of this type. Between now, there's 14 games left. I think that a lot of the games would fall into the category of games where both teams will be desperate for the points, and that will apply, I think, at both ends of the table. So we know where we are in the table. We know the severity of the situation, if you like, as I'm sure Claudio does with Fulham. So it'll be two teams highly motivated, both of whom are very anxious to turn the opportunity that games like this present to get points on the board into points on the board. Okay.
Okay. Pete, would you like to go next?
Just 1 second. Itchy ear.
No, that's it. Right, how proud of you were you of your achievements at Fulham? Because you had a fantastic time there, taking a long way into Europe.
Yeah, it was a very, very good time. There's no question. It was what I thought turned out to be a good fit after leaving. After the 2 years with Finland and the almost qualification for the 2008 Euros, as it would have been. We came so very close. We needed to win our final game against Portugal in Porto, and we drew 0-0, but we came very close to qualifying. And Fulham then gave me the opportunity to come back into the Premier League. I just turned 60 then, I think, and I was happy to take up that opportunity, although I did realise in accepting the job that it might have been a fairly short-term one, because Fulham was struggling at the very bottom of the table and had quite a few problems. They were definitely heading in the wrong direction. Luckily, we turned that around and saved ourselves in the last match of the season, the last gasp winner from Danny Murphy, a rare header, which kept us in the league. And then, straight enough, from there, the next 2 seasons went really, really well. I mean, the next one we finished in probably the club's highest position for, I don't know if it was ever, but for a long time, because I think we finished about 7th or 8th in the table. 7th in the table, which was a fine achievement, really, for a team that had not spent any real money. I mean, to be fair, the amount of money that Fulham has spent this year, we saw a fraction of that during my 2.5 years at the club. But the team did extremely well, bonded together well, and in 2010 we had that opportunity in UEFA, which I must be honest, Mohamed Al Fayed at the time was a little bit reluctant to even take up, because he was worried, and I think rightly so, that we were still a team that prized our Premier League status above all else, and he was very concerned that if we fought on those 2 fronts as well as the cup competitions, we would actually maybe endanger our Premier League status. But luckily we persuaded him that it wasn't a good idea to tell UEFA that we didn't want to take part in the tournament, and we actually took part, albeit quite often in the early days with quite a few players from the regular team spared, if you like, the service of UEFA games. But of course it got very exciting then when we went to knockout stages and had those fantastic games and ended up in the final. And it's quite interesting really that so many of the players we met along the way for Shakhtar Donetsk, they've become such incredible household names. And Fernandinho and William and Douglas Costa, for example, and then you've got the famous Juventus team, and then Atletico Madrid, we lose the game when Fulham manages to nick a ball to Aguero, and at the other end De Gea and Marinda stopping everything going in. To come so close as we did in extra time to winning it, I think we'll always rate as one of the great achievements. But it takes me back a little bit to the fact that some of your great achievements, or the ones that you would regard as a great achievement, looking back on your career, they don't have that glittering trophy to show for it, and I think that was a question I sort of wrestled with last week, that, you know, can Mauricio Pochettino be a good manager without a trophy? And I was saying I'm sure he can and believe he can, because I think sometimes you do have your best moments and probably do some of the best work in your career, but you've got to be lucky if it actually leads to a trophy. Sometimes it just leads to things like almost qualifying with Finland, which would have been an incredible result for Finland, who've not qualified for anything for as long as I can remember, and almost winning the UEFA Cup with Fulham against a team like Atletico Madrid with all the wealth they had at their disposal.
Did you watch the game the other night against Brighton for Fulham?
No, we were playing against. Oh no, we were playing. I didn't go to the game, and I watched the other games on TV. I watched Man City Newcastle.
How significant a role do you think a player that you know quite well, Ryan Babel, from your time at Liverpool? Because the second half, particularly on Wednesday night, was when he became an influence in the game for Mitrovic. They changed the tactics slightly and started putting more crosses in.
Oh well, I've seen the video, all the videotapes that we put together to make certain that we show the players and give them a clear idea what they might be facing. So of course I've seen that. I didn't watch the whole game. And I know Ryan Babel from, as you rightly say, from that time. That was a long time ago, you know, we're talking 2010. So in actual fact, it's 9 years since I was at Liverpool, or 8.5 if we're going to be, you know, correct, 'cause it was the second half of the season. And I'm sure he's changed enormously since then. He was still a relatively young player, coming off the back of the success with the Dutch under-21 team winning the European under-21 championship, coming to Liverpool, maybe not finding it too easy to settle there or to break into a team with so many big name players still, and players really who, you know, had Liverpool really running through their blood, you know, the Carragers, the Gerrards, the Reiners, the Torreses, and all of these people. Not so easy for him perhaps, so I don't expect really to see the same Ryan Babel that I worked with during that period of time. I'm sure he's a much better player, a much more mature player. And it looks like Fulham have made a good signing with him, because there's no reason why, and you're telling me this actually happened, he can link up with the other centre forward who scores goals for them. He's a good player, Mitrovic. They could link up well. So we were aware of that. We've spoken to our players about that, and I can only hope that he doesn't have a good game on the day.
Okay. Declan from the Press Association.
Right, what time last night were you told that Roy could be coming in?
I think I knew from Doug Freedman that the deal was possibly on, and had been agreed with Chelsea at around about 8:30, I think, in the evening, and Doug was on his way to finalise that with Chelsea. But I don't know the ins and outs of these deals. I've got to say I don't know exactly what has to be done, what paperwork has to be done. Sky are the experts on that, and I don't. All I knew is that it was a distinct possibility, and one that we really wanted to pursue, and that if there was any chance at all of bringing this deal home, if you like, or getting it over the table, we would definitely be doing everything we could in our power to do that. And Doug then sort of kept me informed during that period of time up to 11 o'clock, and I knew just about really as everybody else, because it really was that close. There was no attempts on our side certainly to keep it to the very last minute to add a little bit of drama. It was that dramatic that I think our application was one of the very last ones in, maybe the last one in. I'm not sure. So then, of course, it was a question. He informed me of international clearance, which has to take place, after the actual 11 p.m. deadline. So I didn't find out, unfortunately, because I was tired yesterday. It was a tiring day Wednesday, and a late night, and not a good night. So I was not in the mood, or didn't have the ability to keep awake until possibly 1 o'clock in the morning just to find out. So I actually went to bed not knowing, but it was a pleasant surprise this morning to wake up to Doug's text telling me it was all done, and to receive also my son's text on WhatsApp from America, who had been watching it all the way through because of the time difference, congratulating us and saying how pleased he was to see that we got the player we wanted.
Alan Pardew tried to sign him just before Benteke.
Right.
And you mentioned there was interest in him from you before.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times Palace have actually made a move for Batshuayi?
No, but I do know about the one you're talking about, when I think the club were prepared to make quite a substantial offer. But I mean, eventually that was maybe topped by Chelsea, or perhaps the player had the opportunity to go to one or other of the two clubs and he chose Chelsea, and we have to accept that. You know, we think we're a good club. We think we can offer a lot here in many respects, but the fact is we're always going to find ourselves in difficulty competing with clubs in the top 3 or 4, because of the money they have to spend and the wages they can pay, and also, you know, the status of the club. But it's good to know, I think maybe good for him to know, that, you know, the interest from Crystal Palace in him as a player doesn't just go back to the last 5 or 6 hours of yesterday evening. It goes back a long way, and we can document that. And certainly Doug will tell you, if you spoke to him, that he's certainly a name that we identified very early on, that if it could be done in this transfer window and we could get that loan, it would be one we would really like to get. And thankfully we've got it. It's going to give everybody a boost, I'm sure. It'll give us a boost at the training ground. It will give the players a boost, and more importantly, perhaps it will give our fans a bit of a boost. To know that he is a player with a proven goal-scoring record, because I think most people agree, and certainly I get told often enough by media and other people, the team's playing well enough and you're creating some good opportunities. What we haven't always been able to do this year is to take those opportunities, and we hope Mishi will be the man to do that for us.
Have you got any concerns about, or do you intend on having a conversation with Conor Wickham, just because if you put yourselves in his shoes, he's just got his fitness back to start again, he's just got his first goal and he sees another striker.
Well, if he...
That can be a blow.
Yeah, well, if he can score lots of goals as well, there's no guarantee we can't use the two of them. And secondly, that is the nature of the business. You know, in the Premier League these days, there won't be many teams that just rely totally on 1 or 2 players. You need competition, and Connor's clever enough, mature enough and wise enough to know that he's still got a long way to go before he's going to really be able to reach those levels that he was perhaps showing before the injury 2.5 years ago. And I'm sure that he's a confident enough player to take the competition on board and to try and prove to me that, you know, I didn't really need Mishi Batshuayi, because I'm going to score lots of goals for you. So it's one of those things. Both he, Benteke, Jordan Ayew, there's 4 out and out centre forwards at the moment at the club. That's great for us, great competition. We don't have to play with 1, we can even play with 3 if we want. That's going to give me many more options.
Will you be having that conversation with Conor?
Not necessarily. I mean, Connor's very much in the frame at the moment, so let's see how things go. If the day comes when he's lost his place to Batshuayi, then I might have to have the conversation, but there's no need for the conversation at this moment in time.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of the broadcast section.